Hey fantasy football fans, Amadeo here with Fantasy Alpha, the free fantasy football app for all your best insights to help you win your league. It's free in the App Store and on Google Play. Now today's video is part 1 of a 4-part series entitled New Team Who Dis, where I break down every player on a new team and give you my analysis on if they're in a better situation or a worse situation and how to go about thinking about this player on draft day. Now today's focus is all about quarterbacks, so let's get right to it. Our first quarterback on this list is former Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco. Now, what's changed about Joe Flacco's situation? Well, he leaves behind 11 years of experience with John Harbaugh in Baltimore to go to Denver to play with a first-year head coach, Vic Fangio. Now, who is Vic Fangio? Well, he was the Chicago Bears defensive coordinator last year, and they had the best defense in the league. So Flacco's going to be playing for more of a defensive-minded coach this year. And when you're a defensive-minded coach, you usually want to run the ball more. Also, Flacco was benched last year for high-drafted rookie Lamar Jackson, and the same thing could happen to him this year in Denver. Denver selected Drew Lock in the second round of this year's draft. So if Flacco gets off to a shaky start, or Denver has a losing season midway through, they might be more inclined to go with Drew Lock to see what they have out of the youngster sooner rather than later. Also, Flacco hasn't thrown more than 20 touchdowns since 2014, and there's no real reason to believe that he's going to be able to jump that number this year and eclipse 20 touchdowns. So we think Flacco going from Baltimore to Denver is definitely in a worse situation. The next quarterback on this list is another Super Bowl champion, Nick Foles. Now, what's changed with Nick Foles? Well, he goes from Philly's high-flying offense, where his number one receiver was Alshon Jeffrey and his number one tight end was Zach Ertz, to Jacksonville, where his number one receiver now is Dede Westbrook and his number one tight end is Jeff Swaim. So a little bit of a decline there in the wide receiver tight end one combo. Also, no receiver on Jacksonville has ever eclipsed 900 yards in a season or has caught 75 balls. So there's a little bit of a decline there, too, in the whole receiving core in general. Also, Nick Foles has only started 13 games in the last 2 seasons, and that includes the playoffs. So he really hasn't proven he can start an entire season yet and keep up those numbers. So we think Nick Foles in Jacksonville is in a much worse situation. The next quarterback on this list is 36-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, what's changed about Ryan Fitzpatrick? Well, he goes from Tampa Bay's best receiving core in the league last year, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Chris Godwin, Adam Humphries, O.J. Howard, to Miami's receiving core where they have Kenny Stills, Albert Wilson, Devontae Parker, Allen Hurns, Mike Gesicki. So a huge downgrade in the wide receiver department. And also, he's still competing with Josh Rosen for the starting position in Miami. And if Fitzpatrick's off to a shaky start or Miami has a losing season midway through, they'll be more inclined to see what they have in Josh Rosen. Also, Fitzpatrick threw 12 interceptions in 8 games last season and 7 interceptions in 6 games in 2017. And the more interceptions you throw, the more likely you are to get benched. So Ryan Fitzpatrick in a worse situation going from Tampa to Miami. And our final quarterback on this list is Case Keenum. Now, what's changed about Case Keenum's situation? Well, Washington drafted Dwayne Haskins 15th overall to be their quarterback of the future. So if Case Keenum does start week 1, he'll have one of the shortest leashes in the league. Also, no wide receiver on Washington has ever eclipsed 800 yards in a season. Tight end Jordan Reed has, but he's missed 29 games the last 5 seasons. You can't depend on him to stay on the field. Also, this is Case Keenum's 5th team in the last 5 years, so his stability as a starting quarterback is very shaky. So Keenum going from Denver to Washington, definitely in a worse situation. Well, that's it for quarterbacks. Stay tuned for part 2 in this series, running backs, right here on the Fantasy Alpha YouTube channel, and please subscribe below. Also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Fantasy Alphas for all your latest fantasy football insights and updates. And download the Fantasy Alpha app. It's free in the App Store and on Google Play. Until next time, I'm Amadeo with Fantasy Alpha.